Hi, it's Nathalie Kalbach. I'm here with James Luke Björk, I think that's how we say it. And I'm super excited because James is going to be, for the first time, part of Creative Jumpstart 2019. We are now in our 8th year. And I found James when I was teaching in San Jose, I think in July. Remember when I brought my kitten home from San Jose to New York? Well, that's when I was also learning about James because some of my students said, you got to check him out and ask him for Creative Jumpstart. And I was like, okay, I will check him out. I trust you guys. You have been doing Creative Jumpstart for a while. And I looked at his work and I looked at his videos and I was like, oh my God, we have to ask him. And he said yes, and I was so excited. And his video, I love all the videos that I got, but I love it. So welcome, James.
Thank you. What an intro. Honestly, that's it. That's the whole interview right there.
Okay, we can stop now, right?
You were actually recommended to me. I remember when I got the email because I was actually late in responding and I felt terrible. And I remember reaching out to you and saying like, oh, is it still okay? Like, I don't want you to think I'm just lazy or haven't checked my emails or something. It gets lost in that inbox. And I'm super happy and thankful that you would even consider having me on board for Creative Jumpstart because I love the idea of it.
Cool. Yeah. So James, tell us a little bit about yourself for those people that don't know you. Who are you? What are you doing? Where are you?
I can't tell you any of that.
Okay.
So I'm Australian. I'm 28. Wow, I had to remember that for a second. I'm a dancer. I'm a professional dancer. And back in 2015, I'd kind of been traveling all over the world doing contracts on cruise lines and in theme parks. And in 2015, I was just about to wrap up a contract and got hit by a taxi off the back of a quad bike in the Caribbean. So that kind of really shifted everything and changed, kind of where I thought I was going and what I thought I was doing. And, I went home and I was kind of in denial about how that was all going to happen. So I thought it was going to be 6 weeks, and then the surgeon said, no, it's going to be a few operations in about 16 months. So, I kind of broke down in this chair, and I just kind of had to evaluate what I was doing, where I was going, and what I had left. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's also
traumatic.
So, and he said something so profound, and I'll never forget. He just said, well, if you can't use your feet, use your hands. And I kind of just sat there and I thought, well, what else do I have? Like, I only ever thought dancing was where I was going and what I was doing. And, I thought one day I'd have to figure something else out when my body couldn't do it anymore. But then I remembered, I've always loved art. I've always loved creating. I've always loved arts and crafts. I mean, every Christmas I'd be asking for new coloring books, and my gran and I would sit down and color together. And, if I had some tape and some cardboard and some paint, like I'd try and make my own little puppet theater and, anything. It was anything and everything. I've always loved creating. And it was always my, I had my job, which was dancing, and that was a nice expression. And then on the side, to wind down and get a little bit more personally creative, I would do arts and crafts. And, in whatever facet, like it didn't have to be, just illustrating. It could be, making a garment or, going out to a costume party and making a headpiece. Like it was just anything. But, throughout that recovery in 2015, I kind of was in a bit of a YouTube vortex, just sitting at home with nothing to do, feeling sorry for myself, and actually came across some CHA videos back when they were at the Anaheim Convention Center. And I was just fascinated. I was fascinated with how it seemed like there was this idea of art journaling that I'd never even thought of before. I'd always been, drawing or painting or doing something, but I never had this thought that it didn't have to become anything. It could just be this journal. It could just hold it all, and you could express anything in there. You could put your photos in there. It became a hybrid of everything I loved. I could scrapbook in it. I could put photos in it. I could draw in it, cut it up, paint in it. I could just live in there with my creative expression, which I'd never thought of before. So it was kind of YouTube's fault, and everyone that was displaying at CHA back in the day. That I found mixed media arts and crafts, and now I have a specific focus on art journaling.
Yeah.
and illustration, but you know, I never keep myself limited. If I feel like going to style a photo shoot one day, that's what I feel like doing, and that's how I'm going to go and find that kind of creative expression. But I think a lot of the art that I was always interested in was grounded in fashion, because before I thought I was going to be a dancer, I thought my backup career would be a fashion designer. Equally as competitive.
You like that, huh?
Yeah. You know, all simple stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
I threw myself into the lion's den. But I actually thought I was going to be a fashion designer, and I had studied and applied for fashion school and got accepted, and kind of deferred to go and dance and you know, work for a little bit. And I've always had such a passion for that. And I think a lot of my work stems from what I learned in fashion illustration. But also plays with that, you know, all the fantasy of it, like, you know, avant-garde fashion that you wouldn't necessarily see down the street, but people want to create anyway. So, yeah, as far as art goes, I think that wraps it all up, I guess.
That's an amazing story. What I find so interesting about it is that your doctor just said you should do something with your hands, but then you actually found art journaling, and art journaling. I often have students that are art therapists, and they use art journaling, you know, in any kind of, you know, environment with their patients or clients. And I think it's so interesting that you naturally got drawn into something that's often used to help people heal from, you know, either physical or other wounds that they have. So that's really interesting.
It was, you know, I did understand that could be, you know, like a device to use through, you know, the physical therapy I was having. I also knew that, you know, my life had been such a way. It had been on this track for, you know, 7 years at that point, and I was completely happy with it. Like, I was overjoyed with how life was going, and no part of me wanted to stop it. No part of me wanted to have that accident, and definitely no part of me wanted to put in all the work to recover from. As physically demanding as it is, it's also it was just mentally challenging to know that your life was so different. I was traveling, and I was dancing, and I had friends everywhere, and it was just a big fun party for so long. And then I go home, and I was lucky enough to move back in with my family back in Australia, and you know, I lived out on a property. It's super quiet. You know, I don't go anywhere. I was petrified to get back on the roads for a while, and I didn't seek art journaling as a way to give myself that therapy, but I think inadvertently that happened anyway, because I would keep expressing whatever I needed to express out. And it wasn't until after the fact, in hindsight, that I thought, you know, I actually did use that as therapy for myself, even though I didn't set out to. It was just kind of the best accident that had happened, because I had way too much time to be sitting there and not doing something. And productive in a way, even if it was just being creative and drawing and learning. I think it was such a great downtime to learn, and I dove so deep into YouTube and the internet, which is a fabulous resource that you know, I literally learned as much as I could just to understand it. And I'd never had that in life before. I don't think oftentimes we get a period where we're so you know, we've got so much time on our hands that we get to dive so deep into something. And it was then that I actually found community in that. You know, I was missing all my friends, and I was missing that whole lifestyle, but then I had access to new communities that were engaging in this creativity, and they wanted to, you know, they wanted to show you what they were doing, and they wanted to see what you were doing, and they want to share products, and then we all started seeing each other. We're all broke. So it was such a great way to even connect with people. And I think I do see such a great value in using art journaling as a tool for therapy, because I accidentally did it, and I you know, it's not like that made everything easier, but it definitely, like, I didn't hit bouts of depression through that period. I didn't feel hopeless through that period. I actually feel like, you know, in hindsight, it kind of just zoomed by, and I recovered well. Like, that's not everyone's story, but that's mine, and I just, I do feel like there's great value in art journaling for that. But for the most part, nowadays I try to keep things separate. So I still do a lot of art journaling that's very personal, but I have to do things off camera.
Yeah.
I have to do things in journals that no one will see because I'll lose my whole career if someone reads that. There's a very personal.
That's what I actually wanted to ask you because, I wanted to ask you if you actually journal a lot, because the way how I art journal, and some of that is, I do that too, not like a super therapy, but I think about things might not go well or they go well or whatever, and I do a spread. But because I'm also so public and open about it, I usually do not journal in my art journal. It's basically everything that I feel or that I think is in the choice of colors or techniques or the thing that I sketch. And then I might use a quote that can be read any way you want, but might have something in a way to do with what I was thinking. And it's like an art journaling without the journaling in a way. So how about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes I do the same thing. I'll if it is a bit more public, I will reference something. I'll give a subtle hint so that I would know what that means. But obviously there's a bit of a filter there. There's a bit of a screen, but I do have to keep a lot of it separate, because I think even when I approach tutorials or just sharing online or Instagram spreads, I'm a very real person, and there's 360 degrees of how I am and how I operate, and I don't necessarily think it's always a good thing to put everything out there.
Exactly.
Because it makes things a lot harder to process that aren't fully processed yet, that are still, being worked through. I'm of the general opinion that, anything that is a bit more deep and personal that I would like to share, I have to be on the other side of it to share that, so that I'm not bringing people into that dark space I might be in. I want to be able to shed the light on something that might be particularly dark or might have given me such a heavy period in my life. So I think I do keep that very separate, just because you don't want to muddy up the process as far as working through all of that. And if I can leave someone with breakthrough or success or outcome or resolution, I think it's a lot better to leave them with that than heaping it on them and saying, well, we'll see. To me, I feel a sense of responsibility to not do that, just because of my own personal opinions. But I think we all go about it a different way, and I think it's not necessarily wrong or right. And I respect everyone for how they approach sharing that, because some people do need to share a bit more of that person to connect to other people. And I think everyone's out there for a different reason, and I think everyone's got a completely different story to tell and has a different impact on different people. So I think that's very validating for everybody. But as far as, the personal journaling, there are some things that have to stay off camera. Also working off camera as well. There's a big temptation when you're doing content creation to do everything, I'm just going to sit here for 10 minutes. Like, I'll just turn on the camera. It's, I still, even more so than like keeping my personal stuff, personal, I actually have a hard time just saying no. Just sit down and learn something. Don't turn the camera on. Just do it because, you enjoy it and you want to do it, because you feel a little guilty. You've got videos that you could be making out of that. You've got other people you could be helping through that. But, I do need a lot of time to, I just call it my off-camera time, my me time, just to remind myself that before this was a business, it was a passion, and it was a creative outlet for me. It was an expression, and not everything needs to be shown. No one. I
agree. Yeah, I think that's important too. I mean, right now I don't create a lot that I actually. Well, first of all, I don't have much time at this time of the year, as a lot of us can relate. But also, I don't show everything that I do, because I go through the same thing. I'm like, I don't want to clean up. I don't want to even care about if it looks good or not. I just need to slap some paint onto something so that I stay sane. And it's a good to remember. I haven't posted a picture on my Instagram feed for, I don't know, no, I probably 2 weeks or something, or a week or whatever. And it made me like, kind of like, oh my God. But then I'm like, that's cool. That's cool. Calm down, you know. It's okay. It's the joy of missing out. I learned JOMO. I like JOMO. It's fine. I can live with that.
Anyone that knows me watching this is going to laugh because I'm the complete opposite. I have such FOMO. I am always afraid I'm going to miss out on something.
You need some JOMO.
I do. I need to switch that whole thing up. I'm going to have to try and work on that. Look, I think there's I think with anything that you make in a business, I think with anything that, you know, was once just, you know, simple and easy, and just approach it and then come away from it. There's no pressure there. Right. I think anything that you start to make a business, you're going to start having a different mindset about it. And, you know, especially if it pays your bills, if it keeps the roof over your head, the lights on in your studio, you're going to have to make sacrifices in some areas. And for the longest time, I think I just mentioned this always, that I was struggling to always consider how I was going to do that. And I eventually start hitting a wall because, you know, I'm not filling up any part of my cup to be able to overflow to everybody. There's nothing so, you know, there's nothing so full in me that I'm excited to even share it at that point. So I really, it seemed counterintuitive and it seemed counterproductive, but I had to just turn the camera off and say, you know what, tonight is not it. Like, sit down, put on some YouTube, watch someone do something, try a different drawing style, grab a paint that you haven't used in a while and just see what happens. And I'm telling you, 10 times out of 10, it always made me so excited to turn the camera on the next day and say, this is what I learned. This is what I enjoyed. Right. Let's do this. And yeah, it always, to this day, it still seems counterproductive, but I schedule it in and I'm very committed to it because I have seen some success with it. But yeah, I think there's always going to be a passion there, and I think you have to allow some space and some room for that when you're, you know, I think it's weird because I have this duality as well. Having been a dancer for so long and having arts and crafts as my wind down time, you know, dance was my job, and for so long I loved that as a passion. Suddenly I started to, you know, I've been through this whole process before. I've watched myself start seeing dance very differently. I've watched myself make decisions about my dancing based on dollar signs and you know, some regrettable decisions that I've made because of that. I watched how I treated something I was so passionate about as this commodity to make money. Right. And having learned through that experience what I did and didn't like about that, and I was young too, I was 18, like I was making but I, you know, having learned all of that and then applying that to what I know now about creating, you know, my arts and crafts as a business, I'm much more aware of how slippery a slope that is. And so I think I'm much more protective about that now.
That makes total sense, and I can totally relate to that too. So as you mentioned, that one of the questions that I had for you on my list was, so how do you think that your experiences as a dancer kind of like influenced your visual art making? Are there creative similarities between those two art forms, or is there something that you would say besides that that was actually one of the answers was like, yeah, well, I don't want to lose my passion for it, but is there anything else you would think you could point out?
I mean, I don't really draw any visual similarities. Like, I don't so much draw ballerinas or anything. You know, sometimes it can be a little fantastical. I think what I learned from dance that I take is that, you know, I learned a lot of discipline through dance. I've learned that you know, sometimes it is better for, you know, to work in a team and make others shine, because that's more important in the production, to assist that person, to let them you know, tell their story at that moment. And I think I learned a lot about storytelling through dance, because we were always pulling from a personal expression to convey whatever story we were telling, even if I've never lived it. You know, if I was dancing about a subject matter that I have never experienced, but I know what joy feels like. I know what pain feels like. I know what excitement feels like. I know all of these things, and I know that they're all in there, and how to access that to show to somebody. But I think, you know, there's an element of performance there that I think having learned all of that at kind of a younger age, I've just kind of had that ingrained in me for that whole time. And I think it does inevitably come into play when I'm doing art. But yeah, I mean, I just think as far as dance goes, I was just very disciplined about it. And I knew that I could love it all I wanted. Like, I could love it as much as anything else in the world. But if I didn't work at it, if I didn't own that craft, if I didn't practice it, if I didn't, bleed for it, sweat for it, breathe for it when I was learning it, I was only going to be as good as my best effort. And, raw talent can only take you so far before you have to start showing that behind that passion is dedication and commitment. And so I think it's the same thing about art. And I find art is actually a lot more open a spectrum, because sometimes I want to explore watercolors. Sometimes I want to explore acrylic. I've never tried oils, but, I'm curious about it, and I'm watching YouTube videos about it, kind of planting the seeds. But, how do you put all that dedication and that motivation and that commitment behind every single one of these different art forms? And, that's something I'm kind of trying to figure out. But I do know that, passion will take you very far. The rest of it is hard work.
I think that's so important too. I mean, I'm not coming from such a great creative background as you do. I was a paralegal for 17 years.
Oh, really?
So, but I changed my career too. And what I learned in the law office is actually also that you always have to research something. You have to dig deep, and then everything is new. Like, no case is the same. You have to always, you have some experience maybe, but everything is new. Every client is new, and you have to figure it out as you go, and then you have to stay committed. And I think that's, as you like, it's not the same, but it's similar. That having had a different career, and also, I guess, like being exposed to other people and other lives and other circumstances, or like you said, like you had to get yourself into different roles. I think you're like learning this part of where you have empathy. You can create that, and you can that helps a lot with looking at art, understanding art, and also teaching art. I think it's very important.
Because I think in teaching, it is, education is really important, and I think you can get all the messages out there, but I think what's more important than, having things sink into people's brains, certain terminology or anything, I think it's the excitement that you could give them. It's the encouragement that they could feel from you. It's the empowerment. And I think trying to convey that is so much more important than trying to get someone to, lock in their brain that oil paint, not acrylic. Why are you doing that wrong? There's so many art rules that need to be broken anyway. So I'm not trying to tell people exactly what to do. And I think that has been a benefit for when I teach. I do feel like I'm very connected to conveying messages to people from that performance background. But I think too there's a flip side to it, and it's not something that I ever really talk about, but it's an interesting thought in that I am so used to performing that it is pretty easy for me to put up a facade. And it's one of those dangers when you're on social media, because obviously, like I said, I'm a 360 person. I've got issues that I wouldn't like to share publicly, and things that I'm completely fine to share publicly. But what really connects us is our stories, and it's so easy to try and and I've seen it before. I've seen my own struggles with this before. It's so easy to convey that, no, I was fine with that. It was easy, no. And it's one of the hardest things for me to share is to drop that performance and say, no, I am super struggling with this. I have no idea how it's done. Someone help me. I need to practice. I need to learn. I don't want to show you guys my learning process because I'm embarrassed by it. But that has also been one of the most interesting things to work on and put out there. I found that it's actually a lot more magnetic to people, engaging with you than saying, oh no, I'm having a fine time. Drawing's always been easy. I've never struggled with anything my whole life. It's just not real. So.
That's actually my biggest problem with a lot of social media, because I'm I mean, I have a lot of flaws, too. But like one of the things I like, I'm a very direct person. Like I wish I had some more performance skills. So I can't really hide, like, like when I'm grumpy or, I mean, I can in certain situations, of course. But so for me, it's sometimes hard if I have not a good day or other things are not going well to kind of like have this flowy personality on that's positive on social media, and then you just don't see me doing anything on social media. And that's maybe so it's like yeah, I also don't like how to share it, but then I also don't know how to fake it, because I feel like sometimes that one of the parts is like people are saying I'm so authentic, it's all about authenticity on social media, and then you're like, oh, so it's authentic that you have like a nice white pristine workspace, and like I don't know if you do it, I'm just saying, like, and like there's like what like my space here is such a mess. And so I felt like really pressured for a while, where I was like, oh my God, I can't show, like my pictures look like really bad, and then I was like, but that's who I am, that's like, if I would have to take out a white sheet of paper and put stuff on there so that it looks good, that's probably a good business idea, but that's just not me. Like,
look, I think social media is one of those things that I think a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with it. I love it because I think it is just such a fantastic business tool. Now, I studied business back in high school for my HSC, and it's crazy to me to think of everything that I'd ever studied. There was no social media component when I was in high school studying that, because it didn't exist. So it's so funny to me now being on social media and trying to use it as a marketing tool and a business platform and a way to connect and engage with people. I see a very big push and pull between people wanting to get into it, but also completely afraid of it. And I tend to think that it's just a big screenshot of what you've got going on.
Mm-hmm.
And however much you're willing to share with people is how much you're going to put out there. Some people want to share it all. Some people want to share everything and
right.
All the good stuff, all the bad stuff, and everything in between. I'm not like that. I would prefer to share, 98% of all the good things that I'm enjoying or I'm having fun. A couple of times a year, I might just say, oh, here's a real story, or here's like a really personal story, like my car accident or something about my grandmother. And it's, I think people need to find their own flow with that and find their own rhythm, and obviously just steer clear of comparison. Obviously, I think the best way to do that is to just look at your work and say, am I happy with that? Like, do I like that? Do I like that about me? Do I like that about my process? Do I like...
Yeah, I think that's the most important part, actually, that that whatever you put out there, you have to be happy with it. You have to be... 100%. It's not about what other people think. And I think that's a spiral that is sometimes hard, like it's easy to get into that, especially when you're an artist teaching and showing your stuff, that you're like, oh, is that is that something that people could like? Or I know you do products too, and I do too, licensing design. And I learned that the hard way when I worked with a company, and they were like, well, you should do this and this because that's what we think our clients or customers would like. And I did it, and it was the least successful thing out of the line of things that I did. And it taught me, you really you have to do it, that you have to be passionate about it, you have to love it, and you have to do the things that you want. And there will be someone that hopefully likes that too, but if you try to do it for the other people, then you're not authentic anymore, and then that's not going to fly, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you're expressing who you really are, you're going to attract people that really do honestly like that and want to engage.
Right.
When you're putting across a front, people are going to be attracted to that front, and that's really nice. But, those comments kind of, that engagement really falls flat when you realize that's really not who you are. And I think there's a big disconnect when it comes to intention, and I don't think a lot of people think about their intentions a lot.
Mm.
And I think that's where if you really go back, if you've had some kind of issue, if you go right back to the root of it, there was intention in how you said something or what you wanted out of something that maybe would highlight where something has gone wrong. And I think with social media, a lot of people's intentions, well, not a lot, I shouldn't say that, it's generalizing, but I think the intention can very quickly become, I want people to like this.
Right.
It's the name of the game. But I often think, if my intention is, I want to share this, or, I would click like on this if I saw this on someone, I like this, or I want to help people create that. I think if the intention is honest, I think if it comes from a good place and a place that is honoring to you and your audience, I think you won't find a lot of problems there with social media. But sometimes I think, we wrap a lot of our own validation up in social media. How many likes did I get? Why does nobody like this?
Right, yes.
When I put photography on my Instagram, people just don't like it as much. But you know what? I still put it on there.
Which I think is fine too, and I think that's part of it too, like that you like that. Yeah. And then you put that out there. It's part of you.
Yeah, it's part of you. Like creative expression. Right. I can tell you all you want, this is my mixed media arts and crafts page, but I named myself James Luke Burke Creative for a reason, because I wanted creative to be this umbrella that sheltered me with all of that stuff. Like it could be dance, it could be photography, it could be fashion design, it could be, I could style the interior of my Christmas decorations and want to be an interior designer that day. But, I think it is all creative and it's all an expression. And I think that's what I like to share in any facet. So, and I think because my intention is to share what I love. Yeah. I don't much care if it doesn't do as well. I notice it for numbers because I'm a businessman as well. Yeah. So I look at things. I wouldn't necessarily go and make a book out of it if it wasn't doing well. But yeah, I think that's why I don't have this hateful relationship with social media.
I don't hate it, just to clarify. I don't hate it. Hey, James, stop telling me that I hate it. Speaking of, Creative Jumpstart's theme this year is My Home is My Castle. And guys, I loved your video so much, where you actually tell us what home means to you. So I will not actually ask you that question on the interview, because I think you guys should just sign up and then you will know what home means to James. It's awesome. But the other thing that I wanted to know, and I find that so interesting, so I know that, how does your home look like? I know I see a little snippet, but what are the objects or things that you keep around that inspire you? Or maybe you're very minimalistic and you're like, I have so much in my brain, I don't need to look at anything.
No, I'm more is more. And I think the things that I keep around, one thing I have to mention because it's so funny, I've got we've got two cats. My husband and I have two cats. Bianca is a black cat, beautiful, very pristine, kind of ornamental cat, just sits by the window. And Oliver, who's we call him a trash cat because he's just a little white flame point Siamese who just runs around the house, he sleeps behind the garbage bin, it's just weirdo. So I keep them around, but I think one of the things that I always need is something else in the house that's alive. Yeah. My mom always said, don't be the only living thing in a house or a room. So, and I don't have plants, so I'm really happy that we have cats because it can get a little lonely here. Yeah. And everyone else is away, and I just have the cats, but so I keep the cats, but to keep inspired, I actually have a lot of my own artwork around the house and displayed, and I change it out. So if I'm really feeling a mood for the summer, I'll be having all of that on my wall, put stuff in frames. I've even got these I think they're like menu.
Oh, yeah.
On my shelf. I display journal pages now so that, even that's decorative. I don't put them all just kind of hidden all the time. I've got some Christmas pages. It's Christmas time. Put some Christmas journal up. Yeah. But I keep a lot of my own artwork around because I'm proud of it, and I really do enjoy the. It's a lot more personal stuff too. Like it's not just there's not a mermaid sitting out in the kitchen, but it's our wedding invitations I illustrated, and so there's a big portrait of our wedding invitation. Steve, my husband's also a photographer, so we've got a massive canvas print of a photo that he took in Venice. We actually both display a lot of our own creativity in the house because I mean, it's just truly a reflection of the beauty that we see, and I think that's what you really want to live in, I guess, if you want things to be beautiful to you. So I keep a lot of that around. Specific inspiration for my work. I usually pull for illustration or color palettes and stuff. I use Disney coffee table books, concept art books, because I'm a bit of a Disney freak, but I love the concept books more than anything because they're full of different artists and they're full of the first thoughts, which I think are the raw, the exciting thoughts. And sometimes, I love sketches more than I love a finished piece because it's so much more real and true to the first thoughts that someone had. It's such a beautiful thing. So I keep a lot of those Disney coffee table books around for inspiration.
That's interesting. Also, what you just said about sketches. I was last week. I was with my friend Kim at the Whitney, and we went to. They have an Andy Warhol exhibition right now, but they have, besides the things that every one of us knows and thinks right away, the screen printing and whatever with Andy Warhol. There were like a ton of sketches that he did. And I really, really enjoyed looking at those. It was like a lot of like hands of lovers, and it was just like it was just beautiful, and it was like such a different way to look at it. You could still see it was Andy, but it was a different way. And as you said, it was like the first thoughts or the first like. It was like raw. I love the rawness of it, and it was actually way easier to connect to those sketches than. I mean, I love his work. I think he's he was cool, but like the screen prints. So yeah, that's cool. So you said you started in 2015, which is actually like time wise. Not very long. What is your advice for people?
Felt a lot longer. It's felt like a lot longer.
Yes. No, I mean it's funny because you're like I just find it so amazing when I look at your work and I'm like that's so cool. Like I mean, of course, now that I also know that you went to fashion, it's not like you just like drop from dancing into drawing and sketching and like it's not like I was like I'm done. I'm done. Thanks, James. He did it in 3 years. He just that's awesome.
It's been a lifetime of practice that came in handy just 3 years ago.
But like, what would be your advice or words of encouragement for people that are just starting out with mixed media or art journaling?
I mean, it's hard. I think, just be passionate about it, be intentional about it, be open to exploring it. I think when we start to really cloudy up this whole thought process, I try to just remember, be childlike, just be like a kid expresses their creativity and exercises their imagination. I mean, it's always on. Be as excited about it as a child would be. If you need to go and sit with the child and watch to get them to inspire you, I think they'd be a lot more encouraging than I could possibly pretend to be. It's something that I think you should just dive into and enjoy. If you're not enjoying something, there's no rules to say that you have to do it a certain way or you have to achieve something specific. The reason I struggle to give advice is because I think so much of it is on the business end now. That to me, I think if you want to pick up some pens and paints, then you should just do that. Like just pick them up, see what you can do with them. If you want to do something different, follow that passion. Start these kind of frenzies and pursue those. So that's the best advice I think I could give. And I guess as passionate as you are about it. Just remember that, if you want to achieve something specific, you're going to have to work at it and try and enjoy the process of working at it, because once you get there, you'll have a new goal to hit and celebrate the milestone that it was for you to get to that point.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a good advice. So James, that was super fun to talk to you. I enjoyed it. I could talk forever with you, but let's wrap it up because I know you have to start your day too. My question is, so besides Creative Jumpstart, which we hope you all will sign up for, use James' link, please. He will appreciate that. What else is coming up in the next couple weeks that you would like to point out for people to check out?
For me, do you know what?
Wasn't on the list of questions I sent you or what?
No comment. To be honest, I've really hit my my slow period, so I'm kind of just enjoying a bit of downtime. We've got YouTube videos. Going into 2019, I'm actually kind of restructuring a little bit and making a bit more of a solid plan on my end that I possibly may or may not share with other people.
Got you. No, don't worry about it. I just thought you might want to share like something that's coming up, or you know.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty good. I'm just good with the Creative Jumpstart. I want to watch that flourish.
Well, I hope we will see you there. And thank you so much, James. I'm super excited to have you, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. See you soon. Bye.